I was asked a question recently, and I always know that a question is a good one when it takes me a good bit of time to figure out my answer. This question got me. The question was, would I rather invest in one 100-unit apartment building or 100 single-family houses? I mean, honestly, both options sound amazing. So that was part of my challenge in figuring out the answers. I'll take both. But if I could only choose one, which one would it be? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list out the top 3 advantages to each option that I came up with in my head and let you know what those are. And then based on those, tell you what answer I came up with for myself. Before I do that, however, if you have never looked into the comparison between multifamily properties and single family properties and the pros and cons of both options, check out my video that I'm linking below, where I literally list out all the pros and cons of each and kind of put a check mark next to each one so you can see what each option offers you from a general standpoint, and you can then use that to figure out which one better fits your goals or which one fits your interest, which one's going to let you sleep better at night. There's pros and cons to both. There's no right or wrong answer between multifamily or single family, in my opinion, but it is good to know what each one offers you. So if you want that 30,000 foot view of multifamily versus single family, go check out that video. For this video, however, we're going to stick to this very specific question: 100-unit apartment building or 100 single family houses? Here we go. I'm going to start with the multifamily building, a 100-unit apartment building, which is considered a commercial building. Anything over 4 units is commercial. Anything 4 and under is residential. That little tidbit will make a difference here in a second. So the top 3 advantages that I see to going the 100-unit apartment building route. Number 1, one roof, one property, one project, period. You have this one project, you only have to tend to this one project, and your focus only needs to be this one project. Now, within that project, there's 100 different units, but it is still one project. Everything is both figuratively and physically located in the same place, period. Versus single families, if you have 100 of them, those suckers are scattered all over the place. And that's 100 different projects, 100 different smaller projects. So one project versus 100 projects. Big advantage to the multifamily building. Advantage number 2, in my opinion, of the 100-unit apartment complex: commercial financing. I think there's a lot of advantages being able to use commercial financing. Like I said, any building 5 units and up, commercial, therefore you have to use commercial financing. 2 reasons this is helpful. Number 1, it's much more straight lined than 100 loans on 100 different single family properties. It's straight lined, it's streamlined, it's one loan for one property. Number 2, you may not qualify for traditional mortgages like the Fannie and Freddie mortgages that you would use on a residential house. Commercial financing may allow you to have financing while you may personally not qualify, because the financing is based on the income of the property. Ta-da! So commercial financing is going to be way easier for 100 units than residential. I would almost say the biggest downside to the residential option: how you're going to get 100 different loans. That's going to get hairy quickly. So that commercial financing option is huge. Now, there's a lot more that could go behind that, like how to get commercial financing for a portfolio of 100 properties. We're not going to dive into that right now. Just know, kind of like the one roof, one property, one project thing, one freaking loan, done, commercial financing. Big advantage number 3 of this 100-unit apartment building, in my opinion, this one may not be quite as obvious. I like the idea of having more control over the value of the property. Now, if you aren't familiar with how commercial properties and residential properties are valued, like what makes them cost the amount that they cost? Well, commercial is based on the income of the property and residential is based on market value. To learn more about those differences, I'm going to throw in another video down below for you to check that out. But what I like about the value being determined by the income, let's say on a dramatic level that all 100 units in this apartment building are totally dilapidated or just nasty. So that's only going to bring in so much in income because you're only going to be able to get tenants to pay so much for those nasty units. What if you rehab all 100 units and now you have just like exponentially increased the amount of rent you can get on them? That is going to in turn exponentially increase the value of that property. To me, that's a lot of power and control over the value of my property. I have the ability to help control that value. I can make it higher if I let it slip. Well, that was in my hands. I like that about the commercial option. So those are the top 3 big advantages, I think, to the 100 unit apartment building, which is the commercial building. Number 1, one roof, one project. Number 2, commercial financing option. And number 3, being able to add value to this property easier and more in my control. Now, let's hop over to the 100 single family houses. I can already hear the multifamily investors listening to this being like, oh, I would never buy 100 single family houses. They're like, how stupid. Like, okay, we all have our preferences. We don't have to hate on the other one. But here are the top 3 advantages, I think, of the single family option. So 100 single family houses. Number 1, control, I think. When I have 100 different projects, I feel like I have a much more, specific's not the right word. I feel like I have much more control over each individual unit. And then that means as a whole, I would have more control. So like the multifamily 100 unit apartment building, yeah, I can do things to all those different units, but there's only like, if you look at this like puzzle pieces, the 100 unit apartment building, all the puzzle pieces really are pretty confined to one box. With 100 single family houses, that's 100 puzzle pieces scattered all over the place that I can do anything with, whether it's strategy, if I need to buy, sell something, if I need to move something, if I need to do something in particular to this one property. To me, that is more control. I have more direct access to each individual unit, and I can exercise that control to help the fate of my portfolio. I think I have more control in that case than I do the 100 unit apartment building. Advantage number 2 of the single family option, diversification, which plays into that control theory. So if I have 100 units scattered all over the place, they can be in different locations. They can be different property types. They can be, some sketchy neighborhoods, some really nice neighborhoods, some higher price, some not. There's so much more diversification potential with 100 separate units. Much like with the control, if all my 100 units are stuck in this one building of the multifamily 100 unit apartment complex, not really a lot of diversification, no location diversification, probably very little property type diversification, like maybe 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom versus 3 bedroom versus like townhouse, single family, 2-story, 1-story, multiple bedrooms, whatever it may be. As a whole, I think the diversification option of the single families astronomically higher. And as we all know, that plays into strategy, because do you want to put all your eggs in one basket? Maybe not, which you kind of are on the multifamily. So there's that. Third big advantage, I think, about single family houses is the demand. I cannot for the life of me come up with any single reason why over the next 5,000 years, single family houses would suddenly not be in demand. If there's one asset class in this entire world, it's single family houses that I think will always be needed. I don't see any way around this. I'm making this video in 2021. What happened in 2020? In case people were thinking, oh, well, people always want to live in apartment complexes too. Well, guess what happened in 2020? COVID. What happened when COVID hit, among a million other things? People all of a sudden were flocking out of big apartment buildings. They're like, I don't want to be near people. I don't want to be near germs. I have to now work from home. I want more space. I don't want to be in this big crowded building. Peace out. I'm moving to the suburbs. That dynamic was so big, it nearly flipped the real estate market on its head. In case you're underestimating how serious that was, it was called de-densification. Like, think of dense. The 100 unit apartment building is dense. There's a lot of people in a small space. De-densification is everyone trying to get out of all those crowds. So I think single family houses are way more secure in the long term. I just don't see how people would not want to live in those at some point. Whereas apartment buildings, yeah, probably people always kind of live in them, but it doesn't mean they want to and that they won't flunk out wanting more space. So, summary of the big three advantages for the single family option: 100 single family houses. Control, diversification, demand. So, what is my answer to the question, would I rather have one 100 unit apartment building or 100 single family houses? Before I tell you my answer, I want to hear your answer. First, I want to hear a little thumbs up via smashing that thumbs up. Then I want you to comment, what is your answer? What would you pick if you could only have one of those, and why? Make sure you put the why in there, because all the considerations I gave, it's not an all-inclusive list. What are the other things you think about in helping make your decision? So now, what is my answer? I have decided that if I could only have one of these, I would choose the 100 single family houses. Again, I can hear the multifamily investors be like, oh, why would you do that? I get it. There are some major downsides to that. Financing is going to be atrociously harder. 100 different projects is harder. Just property managers on each individual property is harder. But ultimately, what really makes it for me is the ability to move those puzzle pieces around. I mean, I did used to be an engineer, so I'm a big fan of puzzle pieces. So, maybe I'm a little biased, but I like the ability to control the fate of my portfolio easier, in my opinion, than I could with this one building. With a 100 unit apartment complex, I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, and I only have so much leeway to do anything about that. For me, it's 100 single family houses. And I just thought to myself, this is kind of the difference between like an iPhone and an Android. Shocker, I have an Android because I want to be able to move everything around, and I can't do that on iPhones. Little random whatever there. I can see people taking their thumbs up away if they're iPhone fans, but like, humor me. But anyways, that is my conclusion, is I would go for the single family houses. I think there's better exit strategy potential. I can move puzzle pieces around, and not all my eggs are in one basket. But again, I'm also not going to hate on you for that 100 unit apartment building for all the advantages I said over there too. So again, what is your answer to the question and why? Throw those in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, because this is fun, and let's do these hypothetical questions more often, and keep pondering it. What's your investing portfolio going to look like? What are the advantages of everything? Think about it.